Welcome everyone. Welcome. My name's Arjuna and I'm giving a presentation today on home to the heart, it is, but into silence, into peace. And this is the presentation that chose me this year. And it's been 2 or 3 months of deep focus and gathering ideas that have supported me over many, many years, many decades in fact. I've designed it as a contemplation. So I'll be doing a lot of talking, sharing of a lot of ideas. I'm using this structure. It's from a book called The Writer's Journey by Vogler. Vogler took some ideas from Carl Jung's archetypes, and also from Joseph Campbell. He wrote a book called Hero with 1,000 Faces. And Campbell looked at the myths and stories that people have been telling for centuries, and he worked out that it didn't matter which group of people, the stories always had a certain pattern of someone leaving the village or leaving the community and being called to go on a quest. And on that quest, facing trials, tribulations, finding allies, going through deep ordeals, and eventually coming back with the treasures found to share with the community. And Campbell talks about this as the true hero. Many heroes can go off. Some people don't even get past the inner calling. They just refuse, point blank, and that's an incarnation gone. Other people often find after the inner calling, there's a bit of reluctance, resistance, refusal, but eventually the hero continues on, crossing the first threshold, descending perhaps into the subterranean world, perhaps going off into the spiritual realms, but going through some kind of ordeal. There is a reward for going on this journey, many rewards. There's a road back and there's a return to the ordinary world. Okay, so the ideas I'm using very briefly: Eastern philosophy, Jungian psychology, Sufi mysticism, Zen Buddhism, theosophy, and my direct personal experience. These are the fields I've studied over 40 years and that really support me in finding a sense of peace, in finding trust in life, that it's okay, you know, the challenges we face are okay. They're there for a reason. We might not understand them this life, but they are there for a reason and they do serve us. One of the main things that came to me when I considered doing a presentation this year was silence. I had no sense that I wanted to do a presentation whatsoever. I thought, what a great idea, but there was no inner calling. So I sat with it, and I sat with it for about 3 weeks, and the only thing I got was be silent, go within, nurture yourself, take a break. I think, but you know, the deadline's in a day. No, look at your old Zen texts. They supported you a lot. Look at your Zen. And I finished the project and 5 minutes later it just hit me. The writer's journey, and put all the Zen in there and all the other things that support you. And I couldn't say no. I was doing a presentation and I texted on the spot, this is what I'd like to offer. So that was the call and perhaps the resistance, and here we are. So this is interesting, because I'm going to do this and it might disturb some of you, but part of the talk is about Jungian's idea of moving from our centre in the ego, not killing it, not getting rid of it, give it a bit of honour, but moving it out of the centre. So it's not the king or the queen of your life, but it's part of your life, and let spirit be in the centre. So I'm going to shift over here so I can deal with the technology. Hope that doesn't disturb anybody. Dear Joan of Arc got her image here because some friends reminded me the other day, why is it called the hero's journey? Why can't it be the heroine's? Well, it includes everybody. Yeah. It's the journey of answering an inner call, facing your demons, going through the trials, accepting that it's okay, at whatever level it's okay. So a departure, an adventure and a return, a cyclic thing. We constantly go through these cycles, incarnations, learning something, growing. Joseph Campbell defines the hero as someone who has given his or her life to something bigger than themselves. I see the hero as every one of us who, when called to action, responds and sees the task through. The journey necessarily presents challenges and tests and transformation. And I don't know about you, but I don't like change much unless it's an ice cream or a movie or the sun comes out. But the transformation we go through on the spiritual path can be deeply, deeply troubling and challenging. And I've got a note, no matter how challenging, this journey is a rare and incredible gift. You know, I am part of this eternal life, eternal spirit. T.S. Eliot, this is a famous quote. The end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. I'm reading this book, I've just finished this book by Neil Donald Walsh, and he suggests you are divinity, immersed in divinity, expressing itself as the individualized aspect of divinity known as you. Yeah? So we start in the ordinary world. The hero ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. And we're all going to have a different ordinary world. I'll very quickly share you some of mine. Poet Isa, New Year's Day. Everything is in blossom. I feel about average. Another one of his poems. O snail, climb Mount Fuji, but slowly. Just briefly, some Zen poems that I love. The wind brings fallen leaves, enough to make a fire. The long night, the sound of water, says what I think. Sitting quietly doing nothing, spring comes and the grass grows by itself. On rainy days, the monk Ryokan feels sorry for himself. Such is life. 7 times down, 8 times up. So that's part of how I see the ordinary world, how I experience it. I also experience it through psychology, through Jungian psychology. It gives me a lovely sense of a world I feel I understand and I feel I enjoy. And Jungian analyst Robert Johnson talks about our process starts with innocent wholeness, enters into informed separateness, and we end up, if we're lucky, in informed wholeness. We go from innocence to experience, to knowledge, to knowing bliss. Another Jungian author, James Hollis, talks about we have two options in general people seem to use. One is to accept the adventure of life, to face our fears, to do what it takes to go out into the adventure, and the other is to go back to the womb. And I know I go between both a lot because I love sitting in the forest and not necessarily throwing myself into deep, dark challenges more than what I've been through, perhaps. But we do have choice. And I was very stuck in life once, and my dance teacher at the time said, just use your choice. If you don't feel like dancing, sit down. If you do, get up and express yourself. And it released something in me. It gave me a permission to be alive, to be true to myself, to move when I felt like moving, to be still when I felt like being still. Hollis, American author Hollis, wonderful writer, Jungian. While revering the mystery of others, our individuation summons each of us to stand in the presence of our own mystery and become more fully responsible for who we are in this journey we call our life. Individuation is a surrender of the ego's agenda of security and emotional reinforcement in favour of humbling service to the soul's intent. It's just so much poetry in the way he writes, this author. Campbell talks about, and I think this is important, where we had thought to travel outward, we will come to the centre of our own existence. Our eyes and our mind, we're constantly out there until we're called within. So let's get on to a call to adventure. Once called can no longer remain indefinitely in the comfort of the ordinary world. When I came to Theosophy, I was taking flying lessons every week, and it was the love of my life. And something in me, I'd take an hour in an aeroplane, a single-engine aeroplane, once a week, and it was bliss. And it was technology and the sense of freedom, but this inner thing said, no, it's not your path. And I started praying, saying, can it be my path? Can it be a path of service? I could teach others to fly. I could help people feel free. No. And then I'd done about 21 hours. I was just about to go solo. I got called to go overseas. My last lesson was like I was flying solo. The teacher just let me do what I wanted to do. But while I was overseas, I had this impulse. And in my mind, it was pure, the essence of Lord Jesus. And I was asked, would you give up studying aeronautics and study Theosophy instead? And I went, of course, I've never felt this bliss before, this pure light and this very clear request. And then I went through an entire year of a hangover of grief and loss, and it was tough. I gave up my passion for this inner calling. So, I wrote something last night. Where is it? I felt a deep personal loss because of it, but the spiritual experiences have changed me forever. I'm aware of the deeper, greater gift in that surrender. So Theosophy talks about this path of aspirant, probationary and disciple, and I don't have deep knowledge of this, but beginning with aspiration. As an aspirant, he reaches the hearts of men in some way or another and becomes a helper and server of his or her race. We sort of open up to serving others rather than ourselves as much. Not so many personal ambitions as ambitions for the greater good, I imagine. Refusal of the call, facing the greatest of all terrors, terrors of the unknown. Jung says, most of us live our lives in shoes that are too small for us. James Hollis, we try to live in smaller fictions in order to feel more secure. So if we had time, I would ask you, do you do that? To what degree do you do that? I was reminded doing this that my teacher, Ananda, I heard her say a few times, the truth shall set you free. We go on an outer journey before we realise there's an inner one as well. Johnson talks about generally the early part of one's life is taken up with a necessary distancing from God. Learning about the cultural requirements, for the society in which one lives, leaving the house of the parents, developing one's independence, personal self, but there's a constant pullback in the sense a pullback from the sense of unity from which we came. We want to reconnect with this bliss that we came from. It's challenging down here on the planet. There's things for us to learn and grow. And so Jungian psychology calls this the mother complex, a regressive pull. And we find this, as Johnson suggests, in suicide, but also in the use of drugs, alcohol, mindless consumption of food, or over-caring about material goods. We find a way to avoid our spiritual call, and we cling to the earthly rather than let the earthly flow. And I know Yogananda talks about renunciation, and I know when I first saw the word renunciation, I thought, hey, that means going without. And Yogananda says, no, it's only about going without misery, going without the things you don't need to have the greater gift. I might have time for a little story, which I love. Many years ago, I came across a book called Illusions by Richard Bach, and the little notes in the beginning of the book. It was a time when I'd let go of my career, I was wandering, I had no money at all. Anyway. And then I came across this story. And just a little quote. Once there lived a village of creatures along the bottom of a great crystal river. The current of the river swept silently over them all. The current going its own way, knowing only its own crystal self. Each creature, in its own manner, clung tightly to the twigs and rocks of the river bottom, for clinging was their way of life, and resisting the current, what each had learned from birth. But one creature said at last, I'm tired of clinging. Though I cannot see it with my eyes, I trust that the current knows where it's going. I shall let go and see where it's going. I shall let go and let it take me where it will. And Bach writes, the river delights to lift us free, if only we dare let go. Our true work is this voyage, this adventure. Meeting with a mentor, very, very brief. The mentor, if you accept this journey, you will meet your mentor, someone who will help you. I've had enormous help over my life in so many different ways. In the early days, just from the next book I found, and people, and the caring and kindness in this world that is there. And my main mentors were Tara Jyoti Govinda and Ananda Tarashan. And they changed my life, assisted me to change my life completely. Tara Jyoti, one of the things she wrote was, I had looked everywhere, searched high and low. It came only when I looked within. There I found the map for my journey. It was to be found in my own heart. One of the things Ananda wrote, with good spirits and humour, you will overcome all obstacles that you or God have placed before you. With joy the soul descends, and so you can bear the suffering of earthly existence supported by this joy. One of the most precious things Ananda ever gave me when I was in probably the deepest part of one of my ordeals this life, never give up. Never give up. Never. And sometimes when I think about it, it scares me. I think, well, what am I going to have to face if I'm never... But anyway, there's a flow. And after Tara Jyoti died, about 20-something years ago, after her funeral, she spoke to me and she said, the most important thing in life is love. There is nothing whatsoever to worry about. Let go and accept the flow of life. And after Ananda died, also about 20 years ago, a book on the shelf in her library almost jumped off the shelf at me, and it was Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. I read that, and in one reading he answered nearly every question I'd had for 40 years of my life. So I value these beings, love and guidance so dearly. All right, hopefully we've set a good foundation now for understanding where this is going, and I can just more quickly go through the other stages. So the calling separates us from the tribe or the community or from anything, I guess. And then we descend, we cross the first threshold, an act of will where the hero commits to the adventure. And the Fool is the card I got this morning, and it was part of this, that the Fool is ready to step out, to take the chance, to risk the new information, the new life. Vogler, in his book we're looking at with the structure, there's gateways. It's a gateway. And the gateway has threshold guardians. And some of these guardians in the movies, there'll be some characters with evil intent perhaps. In our inner journey, a guardian might be fear or greed or doubt or grief perhaps. And today I would like to look at the ego mind as a threshold guardian. And Vogler says not to worry about it. They might feel like they have intent against you, but often they turn out to be allies. So the ego can be made into an ally to support you on your greater journey. Johnson writes, like an island people in an island world, the ego sets up a little world of its own, a system of order and a set of assumptions about reality. And this is my drawing of me with some of my thoughts being active. The mind tricks you into believing, this is Ananda, the mind tricks you into believing you are the mind. You are not the mind. You are the soul acting for the spirit. Ram Dass says the ego can only trap you as long as you think you are it. And maybe people here in this room have gone beyond that stage. The third Zen patriarch writes, "If you wish to know the truth, only cease to cherish opinions." And it's what we are. It's what my personality is. It's just a set of opinions. Beliefs I've taken. Oh, I like them. That's who I am. Yeah? So I was happy with that drawing. It's like it shows me the oneness. Out of the messy thoughts into the oneness. So just an idea, I don't know how true it is, but I've written, the ego thinks, the soul loves, and the spirit is. Number 6, stage 6, tests, allies, and enemies. The hero begins to learn the rules of this special world he or she has entered. Campbell writes, this is a dreamscape. A landscape of curiously fluid, ambiguous forms where the hero must survive a succession of trials. And I've made a little note, isn't that like an ordinary day? James Hollis writes, that of which we are not aware owns us. And a lot of the psychology books suggest we are only 5% conscious. The rest of us, it's unconscious. I don't know if this is accurate or true, but this is what I've read in several books. And the conscious thinks it's making the decision because it sees it as it comes out. Oh, I've decided that, you know. But the unconscious is deciding it. And I'd like to look at projection as one of the things we go through as we descend. And that's when we project what's within us onto the outer world, onto other people, onto other things. And Peter O'Connor, I believe he's a Melbourne Jungian psychologist, so long as we see all the faults as being outside of ourselves, then we simply do not consciously feel any compulsion to do anything about them. I don't like what you're doing, therefore it's your problem. I'd like you to change so I can stay the way I am. That'd be really good if you would just change. Then I wouldn't feel challenged. And I had an idea too, the work we do on ourselves, it's not just for us. All this hard, grueling inner work we do, it's for the good of all. We free up a bit of the world so the world's a bit more free of stuff. James Hollis writes, how many wars are generated by the power of what we will not face in ourselves, and who among us is strong enough or ethical enough to say that we are our own problem? I don't know, I just feel this oneness with the Jungians. I just love the way they write. Johnson writes, the refused and unacceptable characteristics do not go away. They only collect in dark corners of our personality. To own one's own shadow is to reach a holy place, an inner centre, not attainable in any other way. Johnson suggests that sainthood is the result of wholeness, not goodness. Yeah? This is how we transform the world. We transform our own inner demons, our own shadow. We do the inner work. Ram Dass used to say, the only thing I can do for you is work on myself. The only thing you can do for me is work on yourself. I might even have time to read another Rumi poem, which I'd really like to do. You might have heard it before, of Rumi's, this being human is a guest house. Every morning is a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Treat each guest honourably. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Zorba. Zorba says, I love you too much not to say it. A person needs a little madness, or else they never dare cut the rope and be free. Rumi writes, as I walk towards you, every step is a blessing.